amazing. Look at the city, man. They all showed up. They all showed up.
Vandersloot gives it up. Parker to tie. You bet. Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs winning the World Series. Finds Rose. Rose trying to get open. Fires away. Bang! It's over. The Bulls win at the buzzer. DeRozan to win it! Go! DeMar DeRozan delivers! Anderson hits it in the air to right. Back at the wall, and the White Sox win it!
Big one-way field stumbling. Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown!
Who will receive it first after it is hoisted by the catcher? Will it be the 40-year-old defenseman who has longed for this moment? Yes, sir.
Walking right, Chicago!
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, everything sports-related podcast brought to you by the All Sports, All Plays Network. We have an exciting show for you guys today. I'm super ecstatic that we are in this time of the season. Obviously, we're on live, TikTok live right now at CUBS Mike. If you aren't following already, definitely give us a shout out. You can find us on Mike on the Mic podcast. You can find us on Mike on the Mic YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you might need to find us on. We are there. We are on all social media platforms. And if you can't find us there, find us at the All Sports, All Plays Network. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. But really quickly, let's break it down. There is so much going on today in MLB baseball. We had 15, damn near 15 scoreless innings for the Guardians to advance to the ALDS. It's going to be really exciting to see them face off against New York. Honestly, I think either team understands that they're going to get obliterated by New York. It took 15 innings to score one run, and then not even 30 minutes later, we see over 19 runs between Seattle and Toronto. Toronto just got eliminated as well. It's a crazy day for baseball. It was a crazy day for baseball. It's definitely something, it's the rite of passage. It is October. Like, I'm super excited to really just be back and be here talking about baseball. I keep saying that, but it really is a time to be alive. And I think right now, especially for Cubs fans, we're going to be talking about the Chicago Cubs today, a non-playoff team. I have to admit that, because somebody in my comments did shoot me with that the other day, talking about how are you talking about the Cubs? There's nothing to talk about, but there's everything to talk about. We have been waiting for this time of the year for about a year now. So, I mean, we're really excited to just kind of see, what the 2023 season is going to be, how that's going to look, and what it's really going to take for us to take that next step. And I think there's so many different ways we can do that. There's so many different conversations we can have right now into understanding, what the Cubs need to do, what Tom Ricketts as an owner and Jed Hoyer as a general manager need to do in order to take this team to the next level. Because I'm not going to say we didn't spend any money last year. We did bring in Seiya Suzuki on a $85 million deal. There were a lot of things that went into that, really understanding and really comprehending that, we are going to wait for the right players. We're not just going to sign guys like we have in years past. I think there's a big issue when you look at things like that. You're looking at guys like Tyler Chatwood and others who truly, at the time, you have to do something. You have to do something. You can't just do nothing. It's definitely something right now, Jed Hoyer, the way he's going about it, you don't have to do something. Especially this season. We didn't need to bring in Seiya Suzuki. We didn't need to bring in Marcus Stroman. We could have tanked and been one of the worst teams in baseball, and I don't think anybody would have looked at him sideways about it. Now, for Theo Epstein, it was a different conversation. You had just won the World Series. You have to trade for Quintana. You have to go after guys like Chatwood. You have to go after guys, that you aren't really willing to pay and overpay for, like a Yu Darvish or so on and so forth. And you definitely picked it up later on in his Cubs stint. But definitely wasn't great during the beginning. But, there's so many different perspectives you can look at it from now. And right now, you look at the team for what it is. Free agents going into 2023 is Wilson Contreras, who's 30 years old. his market value is sitting at 16 mil a year. So I don't know what he's really looking for when it comes to years and when it comes to a gap. I think there's many different conversations and many different opinions from people. Some people say, he could go be a DH somewhere. He could go be, someone you look forward to seeing later on. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had 70 catching appearances this year and 39 at the DH position. And that's something, you have to take into consideration as well. In 162 games, he only caught over 70 games. That's not great. That isn't great. But you also have Jan Gnomes. There's a conversation with Miguel Amaya coming up and a couple other prospects throughout the Cubs system that they're pretty solid catchers, but they're a few years away. So right now, when you really look at it for what it is, Wilson is a huge thing that I think we're going to get into in a little bit when we talk about who we should sign during free agency. But Wilson is definitely one of those key guys that I think we need to bring back. We have somebody here right now. I hope you like the Bears retain Reyes. 100%. I love Reyes. The Cubs. My bad. I love Reyes. We're going to get into that. I think Reyes is a huge part of what this future is going to be, a very unexpected part. I think it's a W trade. And honestly, on days like today, I know the Guardians missed Reyes. The kid's only 25, 26 years old. He is a home run machine. He is a giant. He is a man amongst boys. And I think, if we give him the right opportunities and the right scenarios, that he could definitely succeed as a DH in this league. He's a lot of fun too. He's a fun clubhouse guy. The guys in the clubhouse love him. It's going to be really fun to see what they can really do. Who's in the comments right now? Who's in the comments? Everyone's arguing. I think it's Cubs versus Sox right now. That's crazy. Shy Sox are mid. That's crazy. I didn't say it, but I thought it, but I didn't say it. But in all seriousness, we also have Wade Miley, age 35, going to be 36 very soon before the 2023 season kicks off. Obviously, we desperately need lefties in this rotation, but he didn't play that much this year. There was a lot of rehab stints. When he did play, it was hot and cold. You really didn't know what you were going to get out of him. Reyes might be our next Schwarber. Yeah, I think, that's definitely a conversation. I think that's definitely a conversation of him being a legitimate DH. I also think, Kyle Schwarber never gets traded from the Chicago Cubs if we had a DH years before. You know what I mean? And Jorge Soler is one of those guys as well. Eloy Jimenez, the list goes on. We had huge powerhouse guys, and we just had to get rid of them because we didn't have a DH and we didn't have a spot in the outfield. We had so many guys in the outfield. We had Chris Bryant, Wilson Contreras. You're looking at guys like Dexter Fowler, Ben Zobrist. I mean, the list goes on. Albert Almora Jr. We had everybody out there. Nick Castellanos. It's everybody. Everybody and their mama was playing outfield for the Chicago Cubs in the early and mid to 2010 season. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we can really do with that. I do think Wade Miley probably doesn't get brought back. I'm not even sure, how many seasons he has left, and that's no disrespect to Wade Miley. He was amazing in Cincinnati the year prior, but it's definitely something right now, injuries derail seasons, and you're going into, age 36, you question, how much time do you have left? So I think a win now team where he has to be a 4 or a 5 on a championship caliber team is kind of where he's at. No real expectation. So, that's a huge part of it. Now, an interesting one, and this kid's been on the team for several years now, but he's only really played one full season. Drew Smyly, lefty, only 33 years old. I'm really curious to see what happens with him. Because if he comes back on a cheap deal, I have no problem bringing back Smyly. Obviously, there was a huge part of it. You have to take into consideration that in his first stint in Chicago, he was injured. He had Tommy John or whatever the injury was. I know it was an elbow issue, but, it's something that we all need to comprehend and we all need to understand that, that was that and this is now. He has been playing extremely well. And I was really excited to see what he could bring to this team. Smiley Boy did his thing, and I was really just happy for him, honestly. I was all smiles for Smiley, so I know that's corny as fuck, but I really was, because he really did his thing. He really made everybody proud, and he was really something that not a lot of people could sit here and say you're capable of doing. And I think that's one of the biggest things right now is just him meeting expectations, but also surpassing them was one of the biggest things for the Cubs this year. We got a couple people in here. Somebody sent in October. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate it. It's something though, with Smiley, that it's also a conversation. 33 years old. Do you want to stay on this team and wait for a conversation about, what this team could be in 2024, 2025, 2023? What is this team going to look like? What is the timeline? Who knows? We're going to get into that as well. We're going to be talking about the prospect call-ups and who we expect to see within the next couple of years, but who we're specifically going to see in 2023, if I had to guess. But it's something right now, guys like Smiley, guys like Wade, you might not want to wait for that. And Wilson, obviously, as well, 30 years old, does he want to wait for that? So it's something, we really need to see and we really need to find out what we're looking for. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things moving forward is kind of understanding what this team's going to be and how they're going to continue to play ball. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to really see what this team's capable of doing. I think they're a solid group. I think they're a group that, you might not look at and say, this is going to be the team that wins us the World Series. But I think, in a couple years, you could say we have a few pieces here and there that really could make a difference, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's something, it's not going to happen overnight. We understand that. We comprehend that. As fans, we want it to happen overnight. We want it to be great. We want it to be something special. We want this team to be as good, as quick as possible. For me personally, as a Cubs fan, no shot at any of my Sox fans out there, but knowing that the Sox are still dog shit kind of makes me a little calmer that we don't have to be great right now. Because if they would have won a championship this year, I would have been super upset. But, it's definitely something I think when you look at the longevity of it and you look at what this team's makeup is going to be moving forward, it's all based off of potential. It's all based off of potential. And we do need to do something because you can't just draft. You can't just draft and develop guys and expect that to win you a championship. We've seen that time and time again. There's teams like Arizona. There's teams like Oakland Athletics. There's so many other teams out there that just year in and year out, the Los Angeles Angels, like they're one of those teams as well. Every year they're dog shit, and every year you don't see a guy in their top 50 pipeline. In the MLB, there's not a single guy in the top 30 pipeline, top 50 pipeline from the Los Angeles Angels, and they've been horrible for years. So, I think it's something right now you need to understand that this team needs to bring in free agents. We need to spend money, and I think even Tom Ricketts addressed that we are going to spend money in 2023, and unfortunately, I'd rather have you act on it than talk on it. It's something I think, it's something I live by. You got to act on it. I don't want to hear you talk. So, we've spent money for years, but spend it in the correct way. You got a casino being built outside. DraftKings Sports is going to be built right outside of Wrigley Field. You have the Marquee Network. You have all these other things, the Zachary Hotel. I want to see something be put into this team for the first time since 2017. Something legitimate, something that's going to make sense and throw us into the future. And there's a lot of potential free agents. We're looking at Aaron Judge, who was shy of the Triple Crown, who hit 62 regular season home runs. We're looking at that potential. You're looking at Nolan Arenado, who right now, if they get bounced out of Philly, I question if he wants to stay in St. Louis. But my guys, Randy Jowers, we got Jim Cross, we got a couple other individuals, DB, that are telling me right now that, more than likely we're going to see Nolan Arenado extend with the St. Louis Cardinals, but they're also not huge on giving out big contracts in St. Louis. So it really just determines if the money is right or not. So for me, I think one of the biggest things moving forward when it comes to free agents, there's three people in particular I want to see the Cubs spend money on. Now, we have all the money in the world. We truly do. Patrick Wisdom is not making that much money, compared to what he's actually producing. And that's one of the biggest things right now we need to hit on. And we have James Triantos. We're going to have him on the show coming on Monday morning around 12 in the afternoon, Central Time. If you guys are ready for that, we are definitely going to be promoting it. Super excited. Third baseman prospect of the Cubs. He's a killer. He's a killer in Myrtle Beach. He's doing his thing. But back on track, Patrick Wisdom's one of those guys knocking over 25 home runs a year the last couple of years. It's something we can count on. And it's something we can say, this is our bridge gap guy. He is going to be solid. He is going to be productive. And he's not even really a bridge gap guy. If this was a championship caliber team, I still believe Patrick Wisdom's more than likely starting. That's really what it is. So I'm really excited to see, the cornerstone that he's going to take, what he's going to be able to bring to this team. But free agency wise, let's get into it. Our first free agency signing is bringing back Wilson Contreras. You look at the free agents in 2023. And Wilson's one of the youngest ones. And what I mean by that is by the catcher position, I'm looking at it right now. I'm going to have it updated. One of the biggest problems, especially with bringing in, replacing in guys, we have guys, like Christian. We have guys like Miguel Amaya that are in the minors right now, and they're not ready. They're not ready, especially with Miguel Amaya just coming off Tommy John surgery, never really even made it to AAA to begin with. There are a lot of questions. Bro. You're crazy. But it's definitely something, when you look at it for what it is. Yadier Molina, who's a free agent, obviously he's retiring at the end of the year. He's going to be 40. Wilson Contreras is 30. Gary Sanchez is the youngest catching free agent in free agency right now at 29 and a half. He's about to be 30. Roberto Perez, he's 33. You got all these guys. Vasquez is 32. Bartman is 31. Castro is 35. The list goes on. Suzuki's 39. it's not getting any better. It's not getting any better. So right now, from that perspective, I think Wilson Contreras still is your guy. Of course, you still have Jan Gnomes as well, too. So Wilson's not going to have that huge dynamic in what we're doing. So I think if the money's right, the market value right now is sitting at $16 million a year. I think that's honestly what we're seeing. And it's going to be really exciting to see him coming back. Somebody said, I don't see him returning. Yeah, I think, it all comes down to Tom. It all comes down to Tom and Jed and to seeing, I know you're kidding, my boy. But it all comes down to Tom and Jed to really see, where they're at and what this team could potentially be. One of the biggest problems that I find, especially with the Chicago Cubs is just keeping guys happy and being respectful to the guys that are there. Like, I'm going to keep it a stack. And I know this hurts a couple feelings because I know we got a lot of people, Puerto Rican pride, and a lot of people who, are still very stuck on Chris Bryant. But the reality is, Javier Baez was not playing like Javier Baez, and he's still not playing like Javier Baez. Chris Bryant missed damn near the entirety of his first year in Colorado this year, so I'm super ecstatic that we didn't re-sign Chris. But guys like Anthony Rizzo, guys who are the culture, who are the foundation, who are the backbone of this team, they deserve to be brought back on this team, even if it's not the greatest scenario. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. You picked Frank Schwindel over Anthony Rizzo. That's insane. And we're going to get into the first baseman position in a little bit because we just had Matt Mervis on the show. Amazing episode. If you haven't checked it out already, you can find that on YouTube at Mike on the Mic, Matt Mervis on YouTube. But definitely check that out. But in all seriousness, guys like Wilson, they brought a lot. They brought a lot to this whole league. They brought a lot to this industry. They brought a lot to the game, and they brought a lot to this organization. Like, let's keep it a stack. Wilson outlasted the entire core. Addison Russell, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, Ben Zobrist, Dexter Fowler, Jorge Soler, Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant. He outlasted everybody. And for you guys to move on from him and looking at free agency and there not being anybody younger or more qualified than him, I don't see it. I don't see how you don't bring him back. I really don't, especially if Miguel Amaya isn't ready. And that's what it is. If Miguel Amaya was completely ready, I think a great comparison when you look at it for what it was, you obviously see a bunch of guys, Buster Posey retires last year, and you understand Joey Bart's going to come up this year. He didn't have a great season, but you understand that he is MLB ready for the most part. And that's fine. The Mets have Alvarez who just got brought up. It's a conversation right now. You understanding that this guy, Francisco Alvarez, is going to be one of the best catchers in the game at one point. Right now, Miguel Amaya just came off Tommy John. I think the only highest level of baseball he's played is single or double A. It's a conversation to where he's still a couple years away. And that's something we need to take into consideration. Kron who? Crow will be a difference maker. Yeah, P. Crow Armstrong. I mean, we're definitely going to get into that. We're definitely going to get into that. That is a gold glove right there for center field. Whether he's going to play left or center with Brennan Davis, I have no idea. But he is a gold glove kind of guy, and this kid's offense is what you talk about first. Like, if I'm talking about your gold glove potential second, then you're a baller. Because this kid offensively is a nuke. This kid is a home run hitter. This guy daddy hacks all day, and I love every minute of it. So P. Crow Armstrong is super exciting for me. We're going to get into that in a little bit. I do think he's a 2024, late 2023 edition. I still think, he hasn't been the AAA yet. I don't want to rush P. Crow Armstrong because I do believe he has some of the best talent in this pipeline next to guys like Brennan Davis. We've also interviewed Brennan Davis. If you want to check that out, you can check that out. But in all seriousness, I do think right now Wilson Contreras is the first guy. I know that was long and drawn out, but I just got to explain it because a lot of people think, this kid isn't worth it. Some people were saying, oh, well, he wasn't even catching for half of the season. Like, that's fine. But he catched for 70 games, which is damn near half a season if you know math. 82 games is the standard, or 80 games is 81, whatever. 81 games is the standard for a home stretch and versus the away stretch. And right now, Wilson's sitting at 70, 80 starts a year at catcher and then 30 plus at DH. So, that's something I'm completely competent with. That's something I'm excited about. It keeps him healthy. It keeps him rejuvenated. The problem with Wilson Contreras, and we've talked about it time and time again, when he's catching every single game under Joe Madden, even in a little bit of the early stints with David Ross, he has this all-star performance for the first half. And then in the second half, he gets injured, has a hamstring issue. Something happens with a muscular issue. It's just he's worn out. He's tired. So having Jan Gnomes here being able to catch for Wilson the other majority of the time is completely fine with me. I have no problem with it. Go Guardians. Yeah, I mean, what a hell of a game. Hell of a game by the Guardians today. couldn't buy a run, but SpongeBob did it in the end. It was super dope seeing the kid in the outfield dressed as SpongeBob as well. The rookie did his thing. His walk-up music is SpongeBob, if that's you missed that one. But super fun to watch that happen. I'm super happy for Cleveland because they definitely deserve it. The fan base runs deep. But in all seriousness, my first obviously free agent acquisition is going to be re-signing Wilson Contreras. What that contract would look like, I would say something like a 3-4 year deal, $16 million a year. I'm pretty competent with that. I'm pretty, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that. And maybe hometown discount. Maybe we get a little 14, 15 mil instead of 16. I'm fine with it. I think Wilson re-signs it. Number 2, and this one's big. Carlos Rodon, 29 years old, has an opt-out for the San Francisco Giants this year. Obviously, the Chicago White Sox, we got our White Sox fans in here, did him bogus as fuck back in 2021, not re-signing him after an amazing season. And honestly, you look at right now with Giolito and everybody else in the Sox rotation, and you're questioning how they didn't even bring this guy back. But that's on Jerry. That's on Jerry. Jerry doesn't want to spend the money. That's completely fine with me. It has nothing to do with me. But right now, Carlos Rodon, left-hander, 29 years old, has that opt-out. Market value right now is $31 million a year. If I'm the Chicago Cubs, I signed him to a 3-4 year deal. I think we're going to get the best years out of him. I'm super excited to see what he can continue to bring. And we desperately need a lefty right now. We're going to get into it in a little bit on a couple lefties in the minors that I think we can take a shot at, and we could really have this conversation if they're going to be able to be brought up. But at this very moment, I do believe that right now, Carlos Rodon is one of those guys that we need to bring up. Carlos Rodon is one of those guys that we're going to need to hit on because we need guys with experience. We need guys who are ready to win now and really help these younger guys get better. So Carlos Rodon is one of those guys I think we really need to hit on. We really just need to bring in a pitcher that's ready to win. We also have someone right now. I'm really excited about it. This is the one. I'm ready. I don't care what anybody says. Throw all of the money at this man. Trey Turner. We also got guys like Jacob deGrom, by the way, don't get it twisted, who are going to be free agents, but I don't know if Jacob deGrom would be willing to sign with a Cubs team at this stage of his career, especially with the injuries from 2020 to 2021. But if we could get Jacob deGrom, best believe I want Jacob deGrom in a Chicago Cubs uniform now, immediately following this postseason. I want to see it. But in all seriousness, Trey Turner, 29 years old, market value is $33 million a year. I'll overpay. I'll give you 35. I'll give you 35, 36, something like that. I think right now, give him all the incentives, give him all the guarantees. I want to see Trey Turner in the Chicago Cubs uniform. Right now, there's a lot of conversations about Christian Hernandez. I think Christian Hernandez is a stud. I love Nico Horner. I love Ed Howard. I love Pesciato. I love all these guys. I love all of them. I truly do. One of the biggest problems, though, is Christian Hernandez, especially, he's what? 18. He just turned 18. There's conversations you can have where you look at Wander Franco, you look at Julio Rodriguez, you look at Juan Soto, coming into the league at age 20 and completely raking, completely destroying the league. It's definitely possible that Christian can do that. But at this very level, only playing rookie ball right now, only playing at Myrtle Beach, it's something where I think, he's a ways away. He's a ways away, and I'm really excited to see what he can continue to do and how he can continue to develop. But as of this very moment, you got to do something to win now. And Trey Turner is that. Obviously, Bogaerts is a conversation too out of the Boston Red Sox. He's your backup plan if you can't get a Trey Turner. Definitely don't overpay the same money you would with Trey Turner for Bogaerts. But right now, I think our free agent signings and our free agent acquirements would definitely be Wilson Contreras at 16 mil, Carlos Rodon at 31, and Trey Turner at 33. And I think, you might call me crazy. You might say, how is that even going to financially work? But when you look at the rest of the team as a whole, you really get an understanding. And we talked about it earlier, what Pete Crow, Armstrong, Brennan Davis and company could mean to this team, guys who are making the minimum. It's a conversation. It's a conversation. So right now, we're going to get into it. Let's have a conversation. First call up without even really being in AAA that long. I'm really excited to talk about this one. We just interviewed him on the podcast. Like I said, if you haven't checked it out already, Mike on the Mic on YouTube. You can find the Matt Mervis interview, Brennan Davis and James Triantos, and many others from the Chicago Cubs pipeline. But Matt Mervis, 24 years old, born in Washington, D.C., drafted by the Nationals in 2016, round 39, pick 1,174. Declined that. He obviously goes to Duke University, undrafted free agent by the Cubs in 2020. This kid has become from a nobody to a somebody. And I've had this conversation with him multiple times. We looked at it when Anthony Rizzo was going to get traded to the New York Yankees back in 2021. we looked at the pipeline, and Matt Mervis wasn't even really on the list. Like, he wasn't even on the list for first baseman. This kid went from having one of the most inconsistent batting years of his career to being one of the best minor league offensive talents in all of the minors on all levels. I mean, in 2021, his stats were a 208 batting average, a 310 OBP, 70 Ks, 9 home runs, 44 RBIs, and 37 walks in 72 games. He only had 259 at-bats. That was at Iowa and Myrtle Beach. Going into 2022, there were no expectations for him. No expectations whatsoever. And in 2022, he had a 498 he had 498 at bats. I believe that finished off with over 500. This is after I interviewed him, so he did have a couple more games before the end of the season. A 309 batting average, 35 home runs, 117 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, and a 986 OPS. The kid was an absolute unit. He was a stud. When you look at his stats throughout the entire league right now, I'm looking at it. In South Bend, he played 27 games, 100 at-bats, 7 home runs, 29 RBIs, and 350 batting average. Then he went to Tennessee in South Bend, and he had 53 games under his belt and 203 at-bats, 14 home runs, and 53 RBIs with a 301 batting average. Finished off the season in Iowa with the Iowa Cubs. Very close, very close. He's in AAA. 195 at-bats, 14 home runs, 37 RBIs, and the batting average remains a constant at 297. A little bit of a drop-off from 350 in South Bend, but the biggest thing about pitching in the minors is as you continue to excel, you see guys who have more mechanics, who have more pitches. You know, most guys in the minors, especially in single A and rookie ball, you're looking at a fastball, a curveball, maybe a slider, but then you start getting up there and you get that splitter, you get that knuckleball, you get that changeup, you get all these other things that go into it. You know, the 11th man pitch, you know, Yu Darvish, who's throwing 11 pitches, you get guys like that. So, you know, it's something right now you have to take into consideration. The drop off is really only a small percentage, especially in the minors. So for me, I understand he hasn't had the longest time in AAA. But Matt Mervis is clear-cut first baseman of the Chicago Cubs going into 2023. I don't even think it's a question. Another one is Brennan Davis. I'm not sure when this is. I was just talking to Brennan about this the other day. I'm not specific on exactly when we're going to see Brennan Davis. I don't know if it's going to be opening day. You know, he missed the majority of the 2022 season with that back injury. He had a back surgery. And it was really exciting to see him get back out there, and he was killing it towards the end of the year in Iowa. So I'm just excited he's back. He's one of the hardest working guys you'll ever meet. He's so humble. He does not care about the noise. He does not care about the fame or the publicity or his numbers. He just wants to win. He just wants to win, and that's the biggest thing with Brennan. So I truly do believe Brennan is ready for the show. Now, whether David Ross wants to give him a little bit more time under his belt, and Jed Hoyer as well, to kind of get acclimated to MLB, that's a little different. But we'll see how spring training goes. But I do expect Brennan Davis to be a part of the 2023 roster. I'm really excited to see what he can continue to bring. And then another one is Jordan Wicks. I think this is more of a potential. It's something I'm really excited to talk about. Jordan Wicks is one of those guys that, you know, maybe he needs a little bit more time to be polished, but I think he's somewhat ready, somewhat competent, especially for what this bullpen and what this rotation kind of looks like. I think it's a conversation, you know, understanding what it is and understanding, you know, what he's going to be able to do is going to be huge. So I think right now, you know, 6'3", 220, this kid's a giant. This kid is a giant, and I'm loving every minute of it. I think, you know, he's one of our best prospects in the game at this very moment when it comes to a pitching prospect other than like Cade Horton, but it's going to be a lot of fun. 2019, obviously, he was at Kansas State. He was an automatic dog. I mean, the kid was a dog. He had a 0.35 ERA in 2020, 3 games won. You're looking at guys in 2021, you know, he had a 390, and you're looking at it for what it is. You know, he was in South Bend in 2022. He was in Tennessee in 2022. So I think, you know, if spring training, again, goes well, I think we're almost ready to have that conversation, really to see what we're going to do with him and where he's going to be when it comes to this lineup. I think it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge, but we're going to get into that in a little bit, into why Jordan Wicks fits into the system, especially being left-handed. It's going to be huge. We have Hayden. We're going to be talking about Hayden right now. I'm really excited to talk about Hayden. Please don't go anywhere. We're going to hit our next topic of the night. Really excited to kind of break it down and get into it. I guess we could start off with that. You know, I was definitely going to start off with the lineup first. But when you look at the rotation, now, this is expecting if we hit on all of our free agents that we just talked about. Carlos Rodon, obviously, we're looking at Trey Turner, and we're looking at Wilson Contreras. So let's say that first and foremost. So to get into it, Carlos Rodon is your ace, without question. And obviously you would have Marcus Stroman as your number 2, at least at this very moment, until guys like Hayden kind of prove otherwise. But right-handed pitcher, you have that lefty-righty combo right there at your 1 and 2. If Marcus can stay healthy, that's a problem. That is going to be solid. So I'm really excited to see what Marcus can continue to do after his injuries in the beginning of the season. He kind of recovered during the second half, and he looked pretty good. So, I like that 1-2 combo. I like that 1-2 punch. I think it's pretty solid. Next up at the 3, people might call me crazy. Hayden Wesniewski, right-handed pitcher. This kid's an absolute stud. This kid not only threw an immaculate inning, but threw amazing baseball after being brought up. What was it, in late August, early September is when he got brought up. Kid's an absolute stud. Kid's an animal. I loved every single minute of it. I loved everything we saw from him. I think that's one of the biggest things right now is looking at Hayden and looking at him as one of the future faces of this rotation. I think he's going to be potentially one of the best to do it. And I think, it's going to be something right now. I look at him as a high-end, a high-shelved Kyle Hendricks. I don't know why I said Kyler. Kyle Hendricks. I think he could remind me of a Kyle Hendricks with a higher velocity. This kid can paint the corners. This kid can really do his thing, and I really love what he has, tapped into at such an early age. There's so much more to tap into. There's so much more command he can get over time, and I think it's only going to get better. So Hayden is one of those guys I definitely do think could be disgusting. Wicks has a nasty changeup, and that's exactly who we're getting into right now. I have Wicks at 4 or 5. Caleb Killian is also in my roster. He didn't have a great 2021 in the majors after being called up. But let's be real. The only reason he got called up was because of the injuries with Ethan Roberts, Kyle Hendricks, Marcus Stroman, Wade Miley. Everybody and their mama got hurt. Let's be real. Everybody and their mama got hurt. You got Nico Horner. You got Nick Madrigal. That's the outside of the pitching perspective. But from a pitching perspective, everybody was banged up this year. And it was super frustrating throughout the entire year. But I do have Jordan Wicks potentially making this roster to be that second lefty. I do think it's something we really desperately need right now. It's something that not a lot of people are talking about when you talk about this team. They desperately, especially in the minors, they desperately need a lefty. I don't know what the future holds when it comes to the future of this team, when it comes to spending money. But Carlos Rodon is he's an automatic fix to that. He's not only an ace, but he's a very efficient lefty. So it's going to be solid. Steele too. Steele is a stud. And that's where I was going with this. Number 5, I think there's a conversation that we need to have. Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson, they had an amazing season. And that's why I say there's a question mark with Jordan Wicks. I think Jordan Wicks is definitely going to be on the roster, but is he going to be in the rotation? That is yet to be seen with me. I think it's going to be something right now when you look at it for what it is and really comprehending that this team does not need to rush these guys. So maybe Wicks is kind of a second half kind of guy, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him and where we continue to move forward. He said Wisdom is on Cameo. Yeah, Wisdom is also on Mike on the Mic YouTube with an interview. We interviewed him right after the trade deadline of 2021 after they traded the core. So you could check that out. I don't mean to self-promote today, but hey, fuck it. You asked. But it's something, in all seriousness. Caleb Killian, obviously, you have Keegan Thompson, Justin Steele. Those are guys for that 4th, 5th start that I really want to see battle for this. I think any of them are great. I think, obviously they're going to be in the bullpen if they don't make the rotation. But right now, I would want, in a perfect world to where Jordan is ready, it would go Carlos, Marcus, Hayden, Caleb, and Jordan. But, and you could flip, Caleb and Jordan if you want. But that's definitely how I see it now from an offensive perspective. First base, I have Matt Mervis. Second base, I have Christopher Morel. I really want to get Christopher Morel in a specific position. I don't like moving him around too much. I think getting him solidified, getting him comfortable so he can perfect his craft is really where we need to see him continue to move. I hated when we would see Javier Baez at second, short, third, moving all over the place. Even Wilson early on in his career with Madden, you saw him left, right, center, not DH, but if they were playing an American League team, you could potentially DH. Stuff like that bothered me, especially with a young guy. You want to see them get good right off the bat. Cubs might be the 2015 Royals in a year or so. I think it's a conversation. It's definitely a conversation. But in all seriousness, right now, I have Matt Mervis is going to be our first baseman. I think he's going to be solid. Mash is going to do his thing. Christopher Morel at second. Third baseman, I still have Patrick Wisdom. I love the leadership. I love the personality. He's a blue collar guy. He does his thing. He comes to work and he comes ready to play every day. He does not make excuses. He knows this game. He's a veteran. I love it. I think James Triantos is going to be a stud. Again, we're having him on the show Monday. super excited to see him come soon, but only being in Myrtle Beach so far, I think he does need a little bit more time to be groomed. Again, we are not in a position where we need to rush any of these guys. So, James is kind of not at this very moment. But, shortstop, Trey Turner. Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it around it. Like, Trey Turner needs to be the shortstop of the Chicago Cubs or Bogarts, whatever it is. We need to bring somebody in. We need a guy who's going to bring in runs. I love Nico. I love Nick, but they're injury prone. We need somebody who's solidified, somebody who understands the game, a multi-champion, potentially if he wins this year with the Dodgers, but obviously winning with the Nationals in 2019, he knows what it's like to really be homegrown, really have a bunch of young guys to build around and trust. It's something right now we desperately need. So I think Trey Turner, obviously, stealing bases, playing gold glove defense, and having an amazing offense and an amazing skill set. I think there's nobody better. And he's going to make guys like Nico better. He's going to make guys like Nick better, Ed Howard, Christian Hernandez. He's going to make those guys better. So I'm really excited to see that. At the catching position, obviously Wilson Contreras. Without a shadow of a doubt, I have Wilson Contreras. I think it's going to be something. Dansby Swanson at shortstop. That would be interesting. But I do think the Braves could hold on to him. Dansby would be solid as well, though. I love the flow. So I'm rocking with the haircut. But Wilson Contreras right now at catcher is definitely something where I feel like you look at the minors right now, nobody's ready. You look at free agency, nobody's better and nobody's younger. So I mean that's really what it is. I think you have to bring back Wilson. I think it's a perfect situation for it. I think all the cards are on the table for him to be able to walk into that room and demand money, and they're going to have to be forced to do it. Or you're going to look like a poverty franchise. And that's no disrespect to the Ricketts and no disrespect to anybody. It's just a reality. You can't just sit here and do nothing at the catching position and have Jan Nomes be your everyday catcher next year or your best catcher. That's what it is. So, I have Wilson Contreras coming back. I think it's going to be great. Center field / left field, not sure how I feel about this, is Brennan Davis. I do feel like at some point during the season, Brennan Davis is going to come up. It's going to be a lot of fun to see my guy come up. I've been buddies with him for a couple of years now, and watching him work and watching his work ethic, I truly do believe he's ready for the major league level, and I think he would have been brought up earlier this year had he not gone down with a back injury. Left field, obviously Ian Happ, and the reason I have Ian Happ instead of Pete Crow Armstrong is right now I think Pete just needs a little bit more time in in Iowa. I want to see him in AAA and really just continue to perfect his craft. I do not believe in rushing guys. I want to see them be able to do their thing. Brennan's had a little bit of time in Iowa. You have Matt Mervis has had a little bit of time in Iowa. Christopher Morel was rushed, and you saw a very hot start to his career and then a very cold streak. And that's a big part of, not being fully ready. So I think Christopher Morel is going to take a huge leap going into next year, really being able to get into the lab and do his thing. But it's definitely something right now. I think Brennan Davis is definitely going to be great for this team. I'm really excited to see what he can bring. And it's going to be dope. It's going to be dope to really see him do his thing and continue. My bad, the light went out. I had to charge my phone real quick so I don't die on you guys. But, it's going to be really interesting to see if he can continue to build off of his game and build off of what we expect from him moving forward. I think, when you look at it for what it is and you look at this team moving forward, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, what they're made of and if these guys can pan out. So I think that's before anything what we can do. Cubs are a big market team and should compete with the Yankees and Dodgers in free agency. 110%. We have no excuse in the entire world right now. My bad. I'm looking for my charger. We have no excuse in the entire world right now not to spend money. I think that's one of the biggest excuses in the world is you're rebuilding. We need to bring in guys so that when we're ready, we're ready. And that's point blank, period. And I think that's going to be huge. So right now I have Brennan Davis, Ian Happ. If before Pete Crow Armstrong gets brought up, it's going to be a lot of fun to see him be able to do his thing. Seiya Suzuki in right field, and Franmil Reyes is going to be our DH. I think he can be our everyday DH. I think it's going to be really exciting to see this kid potentially even be the next big powerhouse in Chicago, especially at the DH spot. He's a great clubhouse, personality. He's a great, fan first. He loves the game of baseball. And he is one of the hardest working guys on this team. He could potentially be one of the heart and souls. I believe that. Off the bench, you have Nick Madrigal, Nico Horner, Nelson Velasquez, and David Bodie, and maybe a couple other guys, whoever gets brought up. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to see what this team could potentially be. Now, before we get out of here, we got to talk about the bullpen. The bullpen, like I said, Jordan Wicks could be a part of it, but if not, there are a couple other guys that I do believe in that I do think, you could potentially say are going to be a part of this bullpen. Adbert Alzolay, to me, full-time bullpen. Until you figure out what you want to do with him, full-time bullpen. I think, whether you trade Kyle Hendricks or whether you designate him for assignment, I don't see Kyle Hendricks doing a bullpen role. The velocity is just not there. The injuries are such a huge thing, and I just don't see him accepting that. So I do see a Kyle Hendricks move coming soon, whether it's a Jason Hayward style or whether it's a trade, whether we get something for him or not, cash considerations, whatever it may be. Couple low-end prospects, who knows? But I don't see, unfortunately, Kyle Hendricks being a part of the 2023 team. Might be wrong on that, but that's just my personal opinion. I have Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson, Adbert Alzolay, Brandon Hughes, gotta love my Hughes brother, Rowan Wick, Michael Rucker, Mark Leiter Jr., and Cody Hoyer, who a lot of people forget about, had Tommy John surgery, I believe, in the middle of 2021. So he should be coming back at some point. I'm really excited to see what he can potentially do. Obviously, you got a couple other guys as well, Keegan Thompson, Jordan Wicks, pardon me, and Justin Steele. There are a lot of guys that I do believe are going to be able to make this this bullpen. I love Braylon Marquez in the minors. I know a lot of people do. What do you think about Javier Assad? That is what we were about to talk about. Javier is one of those guys that I think could potentially fight, and that's why I was going to leave him for last. Javier is one of those guys that I love. I think he's got nasty stuff. I think he's got nasty potential. I think he's going to be one of those guys that is kind of like a higher version of Alec Mills. I think at times he can start. I think at times he's going to come out of the bullpen. But I don't think he makes this rotation based off of the talent that we have around us. If injuries prevail and injuries, kind of determine our season yet again, then I think Assad is going to be a big part of this rotation, and he's going to get all the opportunities in the world. But at this very point, if everybody's healthy and everybody develops the way we want them to develop, at a free agent pitcher or two, 100%. I think, this is just based off of what we could currently have. The bullpen, I really try not to predict what we're going to do in free agency when it comes to bullpens, because there's so many people who overpay for them, and there's so many people who come out of left field and decide, if you want to be a setup man versus, your closing role or whatever it may be. There's a lot of scenarios where, you might not be that with the Cubs, but you might be that with the Yankees, or you might be that with the Braves, or you might be that with the Phillies, whatever it may be. So I do think, it's really hard to predict where guys are going to go when it comes to that. I think we could bring back a Aroldis Chapman. That's just me talking, but we'll see what happens. But in all seriousness, that is how I feel about it. I obviously still have David Ross at the helm. I love Davey. I love everything he's doing. Grandpa Ross is doing a bang up job for what he's having. The product that you're giving him, he is meeting expectations, and he's done amazing at it so far. First year you win the division, 2020 or not, shortened season or not, he won the division with a great roster. And now you're looking at it, a good roster, I should say, not a great roster. 2021 was a pretty solid season in the first half. Second half, you lose everybody. 2022 is a full-blown rebuild. There's a lot that goes into that. So I think David Ross is the guy of the future. I'm really excited to see what he continues to bring and how this team is going to get better. I do appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you like what you saw, you can follow me on TikTok at cubs.mike. You can find me there or at Mike Hughes on Facebook, Mike on the Mike podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and so many other places, or on the All Sports All Plays Network. With that being said, this is Mike Hughes. Peace.
All Sports All Plays. All Sports All Plays. All Sports All Plays. 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All Sports All Plays.